Welcome to the My Jesus Story podcast. I'm Ezra.
And I'm Kristen.
And today we have Bobby and Bekah. Hey, good to have you guys.
Hey, glad to be here.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, of course. So the first question that we always start out with is pretty much just tell us about your story. Were you raised in a Christian home? If not, what brought you guys to Christ? How does that look for you guys?
Yeah, so I guess I'll go first. Before we get started, we just want to say we appreciate this opportunity and for you guys having us today. So I guess where it began for me was I was born into a evangelist home. And so most of my childhood memories was growing up, going to church, traveling, mainly the tri-state. We traveled all over, just helping with Dad's ministry. And then he started pastoring. And then I got a whole different side of things. So kind of grew up evangelist, but then in my teen years, we was pastoring, or at least helping Dad. And so yeah, church was my life. And so, I just, followed the Lord at a young age. And, I'm thankful for my raising, being raised in a Christian home.
A little bit different background than you. I was too raised in a Christian home. Completely different denomination. Not that matters, but completely different background than Bobby. But was raised in a Christian home. Mom and Grandma, and they dragged us to church every Sunday, every Wednesday. Got saved at a young age, but fell to, just peer pressure. And so I backslid in high school and then met Bobby in high school. We got saved our senior year of high school and then got married. And then we've been just working for the Lord ever since. Yeah, still going to his dad's church and just doing all we can.
That's great. So a little bit about the evangelistic side, Bobby.
Yeah.
I know that's probably a lot of pressure on you as a young boy. So how did you handle that, the evangelistic side, pastoring with your dad, things like that?
Yeah, so I thought my mom and dad did a really good job. Obviously being a preacher's kid, there's just a different level of pressure. There's a different level of expectation. And so I think my mom and dad did a very good job early on of trying to take advantage and trying, I guess you would say, maybe a lack of better words, to make it fun. And so for example, when we would travel, we grew up in public school. And which some people are like, how did you guys evangelize and still go to public school? So that meant we, as soon as we got off the bus, we would hit the road and then get home super late and would have to get up early for school, which can be hard on a kid. But so in those moments, Mom and Dad would always try to make it as fun as we could, which meant, stopping at certain road stops or stopping at certain restaurants, gas stations. And it was almost like each little area, each little town, we had a stopping point that we look forward to. So as a kid, I remember, certain places, staying at certain hotels that would have swimming pools. That was the coolest thing ever, was to just be able to, swim. And so they would try to feed us with the fun side of things, I guess you would say. So as a kid, it really loosened the pressure because we enjoyed it as much as they did. We at that time, we probably wasn't so much thinking church service, but we knew after church there was a hotel with a pool. And so it made, we had a good insight of ministry.
Yeah, yeah.
And so I commend Mom and Dad for that. Again, we may not have looked forward to the service so much, sad to say, but it was after church we get to eat at this restaurant. We know it's in this city, so it was really neat.
It helped get you guys.
Yeah, as a 7-8-year-old kid,
yeah,
it was worth traveling, to go to those places.
Wow. So yeah, that's super awesome. So Bekah, tell us about the your backslidden period. What did that look like for you?
I will say I thank the Lord I never really went deep into sin. Just, silly stuff of as teenagers do, of hanging out with the wrong people, saying choice words that, one probably shouldn't say, even participating in some things that a Christian wouldn't participate in. But thankfully I never really did get deep into sin, but sin is sin. And I was a backslider, and I did need to be saved. So, really, just typical teenage stuff. Yeah. So,
what are some things that happened since you guys got married that you knew it was God that brought you through that situation?
Yeah. So, like she said, we met in high school, and so I think what was awesome with me and her, even though we kind of came from different backgrounds, she kind of touched on her, I guess you say backsliding state. But I was in that same spot. I was in that same condition. And so we just kind of began to grow and recommit our lives to Christ together. We actually got saved in the same Easter revival. And so even in our early years, we started to just grow in the Lord together, but also we was growing in our relationship. And so we got married. We got married at a young age. And so as we was growing in Christ, growing in the Lord, growing in our marriage, she became pregnant. And I guess that may be what we want to touch on today. We'll tell our testimony of what happened with our son.
So, like you said, we were married young. I started our family young. I was 19 when we had Parker. You were 20.
Yeah.
But I had a perfect pregnancy. Pregnancy was great. Had no issues whatsoever. But we got prophesied to about 6-ish months before Parker was born that the Lord had told us that we were going to go through something really crazy, big trial, but to lean on His Word, which was John chapter 14, verses 1 through 3. If we would lean on His words and just trust in Him, that He would bring us through. Well, at the time, my dad was actually going through an addiction, and we thought for sure that's what the Lord was advising us about, and that He was going to bring my dad through. And He did. I thank the Lord for that. But we didn't realize really what that prophecy was about until after Parker was born. So during delivery, everything was great. Even labor was great up until actual delivery. And we noticed very quickly that Parker was in distress and things were very, very serious. He had his umbilical cord was wrapped around his neck 1.5 times. So it positioned his umbilical cord up around his shoulders. Well, the position of the way he was coming out, put it in a way of when I would push, his shoulder and my pelvis would clamp his umbilical cord, which would prevent oxygen, and which caused brain trauma. And he was without oxygen for a long amount of time. They never gave us a specific number, but he had severe brain damage because of it.
So, like you were saying, so I guess testing our faith, here I am, I'm a young Christian. Yes, I've been raised in it, but, I'm young Christian, young, married, don't know anything about it. And now, so here's now, not only is my son that's, just being born in bad shape, but my wife is also, she had some complications in the delivery. And so our world is turned upside down. And then that was when I was reminded, like, this is what we was prophesied about. Mm-hmm. This is what the Lord was warning us of. It's just, you just had that connection, that feeling of this is that trial.
Yeah, and the Lord bringing it back to your remembrance.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so we knew right then and there, we have to lean on the Lord. Mm-hmm. And so then the doctors, they come in and they begin to explain as they was working on her. I remember the doctor, taking me out into the hallway, and I'm scared. I'm a young man, and my wife is in bad shape. My son, we don't even know if he's going to survive. And the doctor began to explain, he began to say, Mr. Sandlin, like, your boy's in bad shape. Mm-hmm. And he began to describe, we're going to have to take him to Dayton Children's, that he began to tell us, his brain was bleeding. He was having seizures. He began to talk about he may have his shoulder maybe like dislocated. He may have like messed up the mobility of his arm. And he just one after one, I'm standing out there in the hallway and trying to take it all in, trying to be strong. Mm-hmm. And it's just like, one giant after another. Mm-hmm. And so they begin to send Parker to Dayton Children's. And I remember, here I am again, young, and they're sending my son. Now, we're supposed to be happy. We're supposed to celebrate. We're supposed to be excited. It's our first kid, our first child. But now he's going to Dayton Children's. And I remember that feeling of, I have to leave my wife. Mm-hmm. Like, me and Parker went to Dayton, and she had to stay. Mm-hmm. And so maybe you can add into that how you felt.
Yeah, like you said, the doctors began to really explain like how bad of shape he really was in. And obviously I just gave birth, so I had to be checked on myself. So they're like, you can't go. You have to stay here. Mm-hmm. I remember just being in awe, really. I think I really was in shock of everything that was going on. Because I don't really remember feeling any type of emotion other than I was excited, that my baby was here. I don't think it hadn't really processed of how bad of shape he really was in yet. But the transfer team came in, and I got to say my final goodbyes to Parker and tell Bobby bye, and off they went. I know we didn't get to talk about this much before, but he was born in January, so it was like a blizzard outside. I mean, we almost wrecked pointing to have him at the hospital.
It's chaos from the start.
Yes. That should have been our red flags. But so from Wilmington to Dayton's probably 30 minutes, I'd say, a drive. So they were like, we got to go. The treatment he needs, he's got to have in a certain amount of time from the time he's born for it to even work. So it was like, say your goodbyes, we got to get out of here. So after Bobby and Parker left, and it was all the family left, everyone, we had a waiting room full of people during the birth. But as soon as Parker left, everybody just left. And it was just me and my mom in the recovery room. And I remember it just like the bricks just hit, and I bawled. And Mom was just like, I knew it was going to hit you. I didn't know when. Mm-hmm. And I just realized, like, wait a minute. I don't got my husband here with me. I don't got my baby here with me. Like, I felt all alone. Mm-hmm. And, that night I didn't sleep. I just cried. And, that next morning, I told the doctors, I was like, sign me out. Like, I'm signing myself out. I'm getting out of this place. And, they didn't really want to, but they let me. And I looked awful, but they let me go.
So here we are. We Parker makes it, and we're a little behind. And so they have what they called a cold cap treatment. And basically, you could only do that treatment within so many hours after the trauma.
I think it's 2 hours after the first initial brain trauma because it says after 2 hours, your brain will automatically relapse and have another traumatic injury. So they said they had to do this treatment within those first 2 hours of birth, or the second the relapse would be what would cause the most damage.
And so that was the race against the clock. And so Parker just made it, within, I believe it was a couple minutes of being able to get that treatment. And so God was already, as dark as it was, as chaotic as it was, God was already in the details. And so he began the cold cap treatment, which is, as crazy as this sounds, they basically froze his brain for 72 hours. So for 72 hours, me or his mom couldn't touch him. We couldn't
talk to him.
Talk anything that would like stimulate the brain. We could not. So basically, they would let us look at him, and that was it. And so again, the first 72 hours of his life, basically, essentially, other than the ambulance ride, he has no touch. He has no connection, and only thing we could sit there is look at our new baby and just cry. And because, all the machines and all the equipment and the big thing that they had that was freezing his brain. And, so you just, all the emotions, all the chaos, it hits you hard. And I remember, each day that we stayed at the Ronald McDonald House, which was a huge blessing, by the way. Shout out to Ronald McDonald House. That was incredible. Yeah. It's amazing what they do for families. And so each day we would come over, and it was more and more bad news. We would go over there, and there would always be like a whole group of doctors, a whole group of nurses, and they would tell us, okay, we're not going to be able to really see the damage until this cold cap is over. So they finally took the cold cap off, and then that's when they begin to really describe, okay, his brain's bleeding and where it's bleeding and where the damage. He may lose his vision. He may never be able to see. And then they begin to say, yes, he is having seizures, and he lost his gag reflex, which they told us that it was medically impossible to ever gain back. And so they said he'll have to be on a feeding tube the rest of his life. Essentially, they was leaning he was going to be a vegetable. And so they begin to train us on the feeding tubes. They begin to train us on the different equipment and things that he would have to be on the rest of his life. And so again, you have that burden of, I remember thinking and just listening to the devil just speaking, lies of your life will never be the same. You'll never get to go on vacation. You'll never get to travel. You'll never get to do anything. Your life is over. And so I remember, and try not to get ahead of you. So I remember days had passed, and I remember one morning just the load, just the burden of just what we was facing, and I remember one morning getting up, and I was just so discouraged, just depressed. Again, the devil telling me, your life's over, like you'll never be, you'll happy again. And I remember getting up one morning and really didn't have the strength, didn't really have the desire. We had been going through this for weeks, and I remember I got up and I said, well, I got to get a shower. I have to live. I have to move on with life. Like, we got to just deal with this. And I remember getting in that shower, and I was just numb, just so depressed. And I remember I didn't even feel like washing. As crazy as that sounds, I just didn't have the strength. And I'm not a singer by no means. I can't even remember lyrics to songs. That's what's hilarious. I can't even tell you all the lyrics to Amazing Grace. I just, for whatever reason, my brain don't work that way. And I remember a song came to me, and I just began to sing that song. And as I begin to sing that song, I begin to feel his presence come in to that bathroom. And I'll never forget that. I'll never forget that feeling. And as I was just singing, and every word was coming to my mind. And I just instantly, even at my rock bottom, he was there. Even at my worst day, he was there. And whoever may be listening to this podcast, you may feel like you're at rock bottom, but you're never alone. We serve a God that can see, and he sees right where you're at. He knows right where you're at. And even right there in a Ronald McDonald bathroom, he knew right where I was. And I remember just feeling so revived. And I went from didn't have strength to wash myself to literally ready to run another mile. And I remember getting out and just feeling refreshed and renewed.
Before you get started on that, one thing I want to add in, he was talking about how, God was always in the details. Even like with only having a few minutes to spare to even be able to do the treatment, like God was there. He was already working things out. With that cold cap treatment, they would tell us almost every time we'd go back there, they'd say, we just want you to know that because the cold cap is freezing his brain, it slows down brain activity. So they said, there's nothing wrong with his lungs, but because the brain is slowing down, it'll stop telling the lungs to breathe. So they said, I just want you to know, like, you'll come in here and he'll be on a ventilator, but like, don't worry. There's like, that's not something new wrong with him. It's just because of the brain activity. So, they're like, it's normal. So anyways, days would go, well, he was on it for 3 days. So first day, no ventilator. Second day, no ventilator. And then third day, no ventilator. And I remember the nurses being absolutely amazed because they were like, we've been doing this for years, this treatment. He's the very first baby that's ever done this treatment that's never been on a ventilator. Wow. And we were like, whoa. Again, that was another way that like God was just proving himself. Again, like, I'm here. I'm taking care of it just like I told you I would. And he just proving himself. I'm in the details. I'm working it all out. So if you want to go into
again, we even though we was going through, such a crazy and chaotic time, we was not alone. God was with us. And so I remember we went back over to the hospital, just another day of, what we just assumed would be more bad news. It almost became, normal, as sad as that to say. And I remember there was a local preacher came by to visit us, and his name was Brother Jeff Isaacs. And he came out of the elevator, and we actually was there in the hallway, and he just kind of looked at us, and he was like, I'm not here to visit. He said, but I want to tell you, what God is, I got a message from the Lord. And he began to tell us, he said, you're facing giants, but your giants are going to fall. And, at first it was just, wow, thank you, Lord. But then we begin to see it fulfilled. And so when we would come over those, the mornings and there would be all these doctors and all these nurses around Parker, and they'd have their little notebooks. And then they was in amazement of, okay, wait a minute, his brain's not bleeding no more. And then I remember, I can always remember watching them all start writing the notes. And then the doctor would look again and he'd say, what's this Caesar chart say? What's this say? And I remember one time specifically, again, they told us that he would never get his gag reflex back. And they said that was, to them, in their words, it was medically impossible. And so again, he was on the feeding tube, and the doctor just said, he told the nurse, he said, why don't you just check and see if he's got a gag reflex? Then I remember everybody just kind of looking like, what? Why would you even request us to do that? We're going to hurt this, baby. Why would we do that? And I remember, I forget what tool she used, and she began to put it in Parker's mouth, and he gagged. Mm-hmm. And everybody's eyes, was with amazement. Mm-hmm. And the doctor was like, do that again. And literally Parker gagged again. Yeah. And there goes all the notebooks and all the pencils everybody's writing. Yeah. And they was so amazed because, again, right before our eyes, yes, we was facing giants, but the giants was beginning to fall. Mm. So again, that was, another giant falling. And so each day we would just go in with excitement. At first it was, depression and anxiety and fear. And then now it was, I wonder what they're going to say tomorrow. I wonder what they're going to say. Yeah. Like we begin to be, excited.
And with that, the doctors, like he would have his normal, just his doctors and his nurses. But as all these things that were like so impossible, like medically, eventually other doctors would just come and join the rounds just to see what else like was new that was better that day. Like by time like we were getting ready to leave, he had a crowd of doctors and nurses just to see what this baby's doing better at like now. Like he got popular within the NICU. Just I mean, a newborn baby's laying in this hospital bed and God speaking through him without him ever having to say a word. Like God was just showing himself with, just his hand of, as he's healing this little baby and things that, go ahead.
And I remember, like that, we begin to be a testimony and we begin to see, I guess, the other side of the storm. And the nurses, like she said, the nurses and the doctors, they wanted to he might not have been their patient that day, but they still wanted to check on him. What happened today? Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I remember, again, going back to the Ronald McDonald House, that late at night, we would go to, there to eat, a snack or dinner. And there would be other families that was obviously going through the same things we was going through, the same struggles, the same heartaches that we was facing. But then we begin to tell them, and look what the Lord has done for us. Mm-hmm. Our boy was supposed to be a vegetable. Our boy was supposed to, and we begin to be a witness right there in Ronald McDonald House. Mm-hmm. And so each day, again, it just became a testimony. What giant's going to fall today? And I thought it was about 18 days. Parker was in the NICU for 18 days. And, that may not seem very long, but living it
in the moment,
it felt like months.
Yeah.
And so 18 days, I remember, the excitement of when the nurse began to tell us, hey, go get your car seat, go get your diaper bags, go get ready because you guys are going home.
Yeah.
And then so 18 days later, we got to go home.
Yeah.
And and when we left, Parker was completely healed, completely whole.
Yeah.
Every giant, the gag reflex, the brain bleed, the seizures, everything had fell. And you want to talk about the pediatrician?
So as any baby, when they're born, you have to follow up with your pediatrician within like a day or two from the time you get to go home. So that was one of the requirements to be able to leave was we had to have the appointment ready with his pediatrician. So we did, and we go to his appointment, and the pediatrician looked him over and then would look at his medical records and then look him over, look at his medical records, and he just would ask us, he said, "Are you sure this happened to this baby?" And we're like, "I promise, like, we would not make that up."
Right.
And he was like, "Well, if I did not have these medical records sitting here," he said, "I would not believe you." Because he was as normal as any other baby. Not a single thing wrong with him. I think at one time they told us he would have to have special glasses from the part of the brain that got damaged. They said he wouldn't be able to have use of his one of his arms and his legs. all kinds of different things on top of the feeding tube and the seizures, and but he was perfectly healthy. Pediatrician was absolutely amazed, and again, God just showed himself.
Absolutely. And again, it was just a testimony to us, a faith building moment in our lives.
Yeah.
Of and even now, like I've went through some storms and you go through some battles in your Christian walk, but I can always look back to wow, if God helped us with Parker, if God got us through that storm, then He'll get us through anything.
Yeah.
And so that's again, whoever's listening to this podcast, you may be in that storm. You may be in that moment where it feels like your world is turned upside down. But just be reminded you're not alone.
Yep.
But God knows exactly where you're at, and He knows exactly what you have need of before you even ask. And so we can have confidence and assurance knowing that He is with us.
Yeah.
And He can turn any situation around.
So back to your question with if there was anything that, really, proved God for us. For me, that was it. I had witnessed miracles in my life, but I was so young. I didn't get to experience it on a personal level. Like, as silly as it is, like as a kid, like, you believe in God, but like, so when you see like certain miracles, sometimes they don't really process right. You don't see the amazing testimony behind it. But this was super personal. And this has, like he said, this has always been my foundational, this built my faith. Like he said, if I ever go through any other trials, there was nothing bigger than Parker's situation. So now everything else looks little. And if God did it for us then He can definitely do this. And that's always been my foundational faith moment. And that I just always go back and just remember He was good to me then, He'll be good to me now. So
if you guys don't mind, where is Parker at today? What does his life look like?
So Parker is 12 years old now, and he is your definition of your everyday average boy.
Yes,
he gets into things, runs around, and if anyone's been to our church or even watched us, on Facebook or whatever, Parker is our church's drum player, and so he loves playing the drums. He's always loved music, and so it's just incredible because he's our son, but he's one of the better drum players I've ever heard. And so we always tease him. We say, "You do pretty good for a kid that wasn't supposed to even be able to move his arm."
Right.
And so it's amazing that he's used that talent for the Lord.
Wow.
And he's just always had a desire. Again, he's only 12, but he loves to just give the Lord the praise.
He really does, in all things.
But yeah, if you've seen Parker, you would just think that's another ornery little boy. You would never know his story unless someone told you.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that, guys.
Yeah, no problem.
Thanks for asking
Again,
us.
we appreciate being on.
Yeah.
So where are you guys at today? What does life look like? What does your faith look like? How does walking with God look like today?
Well, we're still serving the Lord. We have 2 little girls now that are, Parker's 12, and then our middle is 10, and our youngest is 7. They all love to serve the Lord. Bobby's a minister, so we all travel quite a bit as a family for the ministry, and The kids love to help work for the Lord. They love to help build the ministry. We're still just working for the Lord. And I wish I could say that my faith is always super strong, but, life is hard and, we have our battles, but, we can always go back that he's always been faithful, even in the hard times. And I love being able to serve him, so...
Yeah. Yeah, she summed it up there pretty good. But we're just obviously our walk with the Lord just continue to grow and continue to strengthen. And we felt the call to preach about 4 years ago. And we've just been doing whatever the Lord wants us to do, trying to be available, trying to be faithful. And just to serve him with our whole hearts. And he's just been good to us. He's always been there for us, and can never praise him or thank him enough.
Yep.
So you were talking about how you were called into ministry. Tell us a little bit more about how you knew it was God's calling on your life.
So, again, I grew up in a minister's home. So my whole life, I was technically, I guess you'd say, in the ministry. Not just my dad, but a lot of my uncles, a lot of my, both of my grandpas actually was as well. And so, Christmas, Thanksgivings, like that was just everybody gathered and talked church. And so that's like all I knew. But I also seen a different side of ministry that most people don't see. And so I remember, growing up, especially in my teen years, even in my early marriage, I didn't want to be called to preach. I didn't want to preach. I knew the late hours. I knew the stress. I knew the responsibility. And so for a long time, like, there would be, little, I guess you say, seeds planted here and there. It was always like in the back of my mind. And I would just always, put it off. Like, no, like, I didn't think that. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, because I knew the weight of it. And, so we just, our faith continued to grow, and we just continued to grow in the Lord. And so as we continue to grow as Christians, you begin to feel that tug more and more. And me and her used to tease, and we'd just tell each other, we just want to do something for the Lord. We just want to do something for the Lord. And, we just want to be a help to somebody. And, and it kept, just to preach, to minister. And, I remember, we was in revival at our church. And we, was having great services and doing so well. And I remember after service that night, it was just so strong. Like I couldn't get away from it. And I remember, and she can testify to this, but I couldn't hardly sleep. Like it bothered me so bad. Like it was so strong. And I remember, I got up really early because I couldn't sleep, and we had Sunday school that next morning, and I remember sitting on the porch, and just that
bawling. By the way,
yeah,
I walked outside and he was so red faced from crying.
I pretty much off and on cried all night.
Yeah,
and I couldn't get it to leave, and I don't remember exactly what I said, but I think I said something along the lines like, I remember asking her when she came checked on me, because she was like, "What are you doing out here?" And I'm just bawling, out on the back porch. And I think I remember saying something like, "What do you think if I preach?" Or what do you think? How do you think I'd be a good preacher, or something along those lines? But she already knew. Mm-hmm. She knew, and you can testify to it, a couple weeks, months maybe, that you knew I was going to be called before me. And
I think we both always knew.
I just think I fought it so hard.
Yeah.
And so that was the day I finally surrendered. And not my will, but God's will.
Yeah.
And then therefore I remember in my mind in prayer, I knew I was going to make that commitment. But driving to Sunday school that morning, it felt like driving to Tennessee. And we finally got to church. And I don't remember, that whole service was like a blur because I was constantly still battling it.
Yeah.
Still fighting it. And I stood up and I said, I feel like the Lord's called me into the ministry. And the whole church, I think, was so shocked, but also happy for us. And God's helped us the whole time. And here we are 4 years later, and God has really, really helped us.
Wow.
Yep.
Wow. So with starting ministry, continuing to do ministry, can you guys pinpoint or just like, what are some of the challenges of it now? Is there maybe the challenges on maybe your marriage, maybe the challenges just on your family? How does that look like?
You want to answer that one, or you want me to answer it?
I think we have different answers, if we're being honest. Like he said earlier, even with him growing up, like it was always a joy to be in the ministry with his parents. His mom and dad always put, positive outlook on ministry. And honestly, that flowed even into me years. Let's see, we were married, 10 years, probably 12. We had been married 12 years before he actually accepted the call to preach. So, his dad has always been our pastor. So I wasn't technically a blood child, but I'd married into a pastor's home. So I think the positive rolled off onto, me as well. So when he accepted the call, I didn't dread it. I never, took it as a negative. But now as time has gone on, there's a lot of hard work that people don't see to get a message ready. And obviously I would never say this would be a negative, but I think the strain of it is, he has to spend a lot of time in prayer and study by himself. So a lot of times, it's me and the kids, and that's trying to keep them occupied so he can have his alone time and quiet time. And so if there was a strain or, the hardship of ministry for me, that would be it. It would be more along the lines of, the time away from each other. We're always together, always have been, even dating. So anytime we're separated, it's odd. So for me, that would be the hardship. I'm sure your answer would be a little different.
Well, I think we kind of just running off of what she said, just again, as my parents done, bringing, the positive side of it. We try to instill that even in our kids.
Yeah.
Here as of late, we've been evangelizing more. We've been traveling more. So now here we are, making special stops at Buc-ee's. And our kids can't drive past an exit, with a Buc-ee sign. And so just the small things, maybe a 5-10 minute inconvenience, for us, but for them it's huge.
Yeah.
And then same way with, if we're preparing for a revival or just a normal service, but then when we do have that weekend off or when we do have that day off, we try to make it special. We try to make it special with all of us together. Yeah. And so that way we keep that strong family bond.
Yeah.
And so I think it's, yes, there may be some days we're busy, but then on those days that we have off, we try to take advantage of it.
Yeah.
And again, if that's, staying up super late so they can swim at a hotel or whatever it may be, making them enjoy it as well, where it's not a dread or where it's not a hate.
Yeah.
Because it's joyful. It's a great thing to serve the Lord.
Yeah, it's a beautiful thing to serve the Lord. Serving the Lord has been very great. Yeah, there's not a better thing. There's nothing better than our walk with Christ and just what He brings, His abundant life that He brings. Nothing better. Nothing better. He satisfies us so much.
Amen.
And when we thirst for righteousness, I think it says we'll be satisfied. Mm-hmm. We sure are.
Yeah.
We're satisfied. So we always ask a final question. So you're sitting on a bench with Jesus. You look at Him and say,
I would say, thank you. And just, I guess, instantly begin to praise and thank Him for what He done and what He done on the cross. And He paid the price that I could not pay. He shed His precious blood so we could live. And so I obviously you would be such in awe, but I could not help but just worship.
Yeah.
Couldn't help but just praise Him and thank Him for what He's done. And I could never praise Him enough. And He's been wonderful. He's been mighty. He's faithful. No matter what we face, no matter what we go through, no matter the problem, He's the solution. And so I guess maybe that's a simple answer, but just simply thank you.
I don't want to say, use this, but that is literally what I was going to say. So I don't want to be like ditto, but really ditto. I was going to say the same thing. I would say thank you. Just like you said, He's been too good. And even if He's never blessed us ever in this life, what He did for us on Calvary is good enough, and it will always be good enough. And so I would just simply say thank you.
Yeah. That's about all you can say.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Because He does. He's done so much. He does so much in our lives. The way that He moves, the way that He is there for us, and we know that His presence is with us in our day-to-day life. It's just life with Jesus, and just inviting Him into every single day. Is how we can make it through every single day. Without Him, we wouldn't be where we are.
Right.
So, yeah.
Amen.
Yeah. So thank you guys for coming on the podcast today. We really appreciate it.
Hey,
Thank
not a
you
problem.
so much for having us.
Our pleasure.
And thank you for listening to today's episode. Join us next episode for another encouraging testimony on My Jesus Story Podcast.